We are live. Sunday Service, episode number 8. We got a UFC card to recap. Nicolau getting knocked out again. We got some other fights to talk about. A pretty lame card. Pretty lame card overall. Some questionable decisions as well. Possibly some tampering that we might be able to get into because saw some stuff on Twitter today. Got to bring it up because I was a little shocked. And we're going to talk about that for sure. So UFC card, we got the BKFC card to talk about. Most importantly, Mike Perry, just completely unfair, bro. Like, you can't beat this guy. We're talking about that, what the problems that's going to present to the BKFC president, David Feldman, who they could give him next. And then, of course, we're going to round it up with the UFC 301 preview. Appreciate y'all for joining. We got a bunch of people in the IG Live. Ryan, what's good, bro? On the YouTube, I know Ash was waiting in the lobby before it even started. We pushed it back 15 minutes just to make sure everything's on point for y'all to join. And we don't have any problems. I got a nice little TV in front of me. I don't normally have that. I usually got the monitor so I can actually see the YouTube comments very clear. So if you watched past episodes, sometimes it's hard for me to read the YouTube comments, but we got it locked in today. So drop your comments in the YouTube. And I'll be able to answer them there. Let's get into it, man. I mean, UFC card last night was pretty rough. Like, very low-level card. It was honestly pretty hard after watching a few of the fights to be like, wow, this is the UFC card we're getting nowadays. Like, good Lord. I know we had to make some sacrifices from the UFC 300 card, but last night's card was pretty low level. And, yeah, Nicolau losing in the main event. Just to think that was a main event. Nicolau coming off a loss. Alex Perez, who hasn't won a fight in 4 years, that was a main event. Co-main event was kind of fun, but another kind of lower level light heavyweight fight. And overall, I mean, from a betting perspective, I lost just under 2 units. I had 2 decisions that didn't go my way. Kyle Machado and Michael Figlak. They both lost. I think they both could have won. I mean, if we get one of those, we're in the profit. If we get both, we're up about 3 units. That's how the game goes. But this isn't necessarily a betting show. So I just had to get that out of the way, get that done with. First watch party at the studio in a while. And it's always fun to come here to the studio and watch it. Ryan says 301 has some low-key bangers. Absolutely, brother. Absolutely. Hey, what's next for Charles and Justin? Already jumping in. I mean, we talked about that 2 shows ago. But just to answer your question, for Charles, I actually think Charles and Justin could be a good matchup. Again, do the rematch. If not, I know Justin's not going to fight for a long time, I don't think, after coming off that KO loss. But Justin could potentially fight Conor too. For Charles, he's in a tough spot because he's already fought a lot of the guys. And for Charles, I think Charles and Justin make sense. They're both kind of at the same spot. They've already had an amazing fight, the first one. I know a lot of people don't like to see rematches, but I think that's a good fight. Am I excited about the... Cannot read that. Cannot read that. Sorry, Dan Ortiz. Thanks for the click it bait right there. Machado should have got the dub, I agree. Trilogy with DP before they ride off into the sunset. What are you talking about? Justin versus DP? Ryan, that's not a bad one. Not a bad one. Depending on what happens with the Poirier-Islam fight. Let's get into the recap. UFC Vegas 91. Started with the main event. Nicolau getting knocked out. Was it the second round, I believe? The dude's just got no chin at this point. Like, going into the fight, he's coming off a knockout loss. I mean, you look at his losses, they're by knockout. You look at the way he fights, he does not want to get hit. The guy constantly circles around the cage, doesn't engage in anything, has very fast hands, very good skills. But the guy does not like to get hit. And when he gets hit, he usually goes down. So Perez picking up a win for the first time in 4 years. I guess happy for him. Main event spot. So, I mean, that's a good win for him to pick up. Flyweight division's just so weak, man. Like, just to think, like, these are 2 top 10 flyweights. both of them coming off losses in their main eventing. Like, that's the best flyweight it has to offer right now. And then next week, we're getting a flyweight main event with the current champion versus the number 10 ranked contender. Like, flyweight's really rough. And I think a big reason for that is Figueiredo's out. He's already moved up to bantamweight. Figgy was one of the biggest draws in the flyweight division for a long time. They had to make Davison Figueiredo versus Brandon Moreno 4 times because the flyweight division is so weak. Like, they had to just, they're like, we don't have anybody else. We got to make Moreno versus Figgy again for four straight times, brother. 4 straight times. And now they don't have Figgy, and Moreno's coming off a loss again. So that's what we're working with now. We got Urseg Pantoja, which we're going to talk about, of course, towards the end of the show. But for right now, we're sticking with the UFC recap. We'll move on to the co-main event. We're not going to spend too much time on this UFC recap because it was such a lame card. But Guskov, is Guskov good? Like, I don't even know at this point. I could say his hands are good. His hands are pretty damn good, and they're pretty damn powerful. Because the way he was able to put away Ryan Spann was impressive. I thought Spann had a good game plan in round 1. Wrestled the guy. Use your submission abilities. He's got more. Spann has more submissions on his in his professional career than he does knockouts. That was the best path to victory. He did it beautifully in round 1. Nearly got the submission. Goes to round 2, and then just completely abandons it. He's like, all right, I didn't submit him in the first round. I got to strike with him. Poor decision. Ryan Spann never has good fight IQ. I don't know what it is. He showed it in the first round. Didn't do it in the second round. He's always untrustworthy. The guy's a physical freak. Great skills, but just no IQ, no real dog in him either. Like, that was a big difference in this one. I thought it's just a difference in mentality. We see it in all these fights. It's like you get these guys from Uzbekistan, Eastern Europe type guys. They're willing to die in there. Like, you see the guys from the mountains, like the Dagestanis, the Russians. You see him like Armin at UFC 300. He got put in some nasty submissions by Charles. Not a thought to ever tap. Never swayed him. Just a different mentality. And then you see a guy like Spann going against Guskov. Guskov's from Uzbekistan. Spann's from the U.S. It's not to shit on my fellow Americans, but like, as soon as one thing went wrong, Spann was like, get me out of here. Started taking some shots and just crumbled. I think that's a huge difference in the mentality we see nowadays. It's like, one guy's got a dog, one guy's does not. Guskov, I don't really know. Like, light heavyweight is not the deepest division either. And that was the second ranked opponent that they've given him. And he lost to Uzumir the first time. The first ranked opponent beat Spann. Spann's just so up and down. It's like, I don't even know if Guskov is good or not. But yeah, that's about all I got for the co-main event. We can go to the feature bout. Silva versus Lipski. Not really much to say on this one. Silva's good, but she's limited. It's a good win for her. I think Lipski's actually pretty solid. So it was a good win for Silva to pick up. I guess it's not Lipski anymore. It's Da Silva. But I'm going to call her Lipski because that's what everybody knows her for. It's a good win, but like, she's a grappler at heart. She doesn't have very good striking. Like, it's very limited. It's almost all kicks. She doesn't have very good boxing. She doesn't like to get hit. But she has amazing grappling, and that's what she needed to do to win the fight. And that was probably the smartest game plan to go with, because Lipski, I think, outstrikes her easily. If she doesn't get the takedown, she's losing that fight. So she wins that one. And a good win for her to keep moving up in the rankings. Danny Ortiz in the YouTube chat. What's going on, brother? Thoughts on Dragon Girl losing 4 in a row? Let me tell you this. The fact that we had Liang Na and Marnik Man on the same UFC card deserves jail time forever. Put that together, because good Lord, Liang Na is one of the worst fighters I've seen. And then after that, we get Marnik Man. Marnik Man is one of the worst fighters on the roster, maybe in UFC history. Absolutely nothing to offer on the feet and on the ground. She's not good. I am surprised. I am shocked. I am baffled that Ketlin Souza couldn't knock her out. And it showed like the level of intelligence in some of these fighters. Like, why are you piecing her up on the feet and then you go into the clinch? What are you doing? You're giving her a chance to come back into this fight. It makes no sense. JR, what's going on, brother? How we doing in the YouTube chat? Conor or McGregor, who you got? Bro, I gotta go. I really like. I'm guessing you're saying Conor versus Chandler. Who you got? You say Conor or McGregor. I'm assuming you're meaning Conor versus Chandler. I really like the Chandler side. I would love to see him win, but I just feel like Conor is gonna be able to find a shot in all the chaos. Like, he's so precise, and Chandler is so wild. He leaves so many openings. I don't really trust him to commit to a game plan, especially when he's in a firefight. Don't think he's going to wrestle Conor. He's going to be throwing big bombs. I think Conor can be able to pick his shots, land the more accurate punches, and probably knock him out. But at the same time, Conor's been off for almost 3 years. Can I really trust that he's going to be on point, that he's going to be sharp, that he's going to be in perfect shape? Not really. So right now, I'm probably going to go with Conor, but, you know, that can always change. Conor for a title shot. If he wins, I would be very shocked if they don't put him in a title shot if he wins. I'd be very shocked, because that's what the UFC wants. They want Conor to win. When Conor's winning, the UFC is on fire. When Conor's in fights, the UFC is on fire. And I'm sure that's what the UFC wants. Or a money fight with Charles. I would love to see Charles versus Conor. That would be such a sick fight. And if Conor wins or loses, that would be an amazing matchup to make. Conor versus Charles might be one of my dream fights right now, because we all love to watch Charles. To put him against Conor, that would be sick. That would be amazing. And we also love to see, you know, Charles fight guys that aren't going to just take him down and sit in his guard, like Gunarman Sarukian. Let's just be honest. We love to see Charles in these firefights against like Gaethje and Poirier, where will stand and trade with you, but of course he's got the jiu-jitsu. He's going to go to it. JR, they both haven't fought in a while. It's going to be a good fight. Yeah, of course. I mean, Chandler has been sitting out for a long time too, so I guess you can't really expect him to go in there on point. You know, he's been out for a year and 9 months at that point, something like that. So yeah, it's crazy. Could I knock out Marnik Man? I think I probably could. I think it'd probably be a first round knockout, to be honest. Like, she has absolutely nothing to offer on the feet. It's not like she has great takedowns. I'm probably 70 to 80 pounds heavier than her. Maybe not. Probably like 60 to 70 pounds heavier than her. I'm knocking her out round one. Let's just keep it a buck. I'm knocking Marnik Man out cold. And I don't even think I would have to use like any kicks. I could just do it straight boxing, because she has nothing to offer. Chandler versus Dariush, if Conor wins, that would be interesting and probably a good matchup, honestly. If Conor does knock out Michael Chandler, Chandler versus Dariush would make some good sense. It's good matchmaking right there. Is UFC VIP worth $1,000? I don't know where you're getting $1,000, brother, because last time I checked, UFC VIP. Are you saying UFC X? Is that you're talking about like the convention type thing? If that's what you're talking about, the convention thing for International Fight Week, the VIP, I would have no idea. I've only done the VIP thing for a fight night, so I don't know what goes on for the convention thing, if that's where you're getting at. $1,000 seems pretty steep. I would probably angle to say no, it's not worth it. Pantoja KOs Usyk in round 2. We're going to talk about that. We got to finish this UFC recap because I know some people tune in to see my thoughts on the card that happened last night. Let's just get right back into it. We'll go with the Onama versus Jonathan Pierce fight down the card. Onama, he's a tough fight for anybody. David Onama is a tough fight for any singular flyweight, or featherweight, not a flyweight, featherweight. He's very good on the feet. We saw in those scrambles, he's explosive, very tough to keep down. I thought his biggest mistake was like engaging in the grappling. I think it was round 2. They just kept going back and forth in these grappling exchanges. Once you get up against Jonathan Pierce, just stay up, bro. He could have made it a lot easier on him. I think the camp change for him moving to Factory X works wonders for him. We've seen a lot of improvements in his game. He's a really tough fight for anybody. But at the end of the day, him missing weight played a massive factor in that. And I don't care what anybody says. If you miss weight by 2-3 pounds, you're going into that fight with an advantage. We saw it in the Ryan Garcia-Devin Haney fight, and that's not even MMA. Like, the fact that he didn't have to cut those extra, I think it was 2.5 pounds to hit 146. The cardio is just, it's going to be so much better. The chin's going to be so much better. And Onama didn't really fade at all. I would assume if he had to make 146, he's going to fade a little bit, you know? Like, the weight miss is always going to be an advantage. And it sucks for the fighter that doesn't miss weight, and they've trained for 6 to 8, maybe even 10 weeks for this fight. Their opponent misses weight, and they're like, shit, man, like, I just did all that work. I'm not going to get paid if I don't take this fight. I have to take it and just hope that I'm better than him, or hope that this weight miss doesn't allow them to gain an advantage. But of course it does. It sucks. It sucks for Jonathan Pierce. He's the one that made weight. But I do believe he did lose that fight. I thought he lost the first and the third. Pierce won the second. Back to the YouTube chats. You think Derek Lewis is going on another losing streak? Possibly. But he's a favorite against Nascimento in, I think that's 2 weeks after the UFC 301 card. I think he's the favorite. And I don't think that's a terrible matchup for him. Like, I think Derek Lewis could probably beat Nascimento. Why did Herb Dean try to kill Ryan Spann? Bro, I think he tried to give him everything. But, yeah, I mean, it looks like he could have stopped that pretty soon. Or a lot sooner. Like, he was taking some big shots on the ground. Once he went down, I think you give him like 2 or 3 punches, and that's wraps. And he probably took like 8, maybe even 9, maybe 10. Never bet on Derek Lewis. Well, I bet on him against Rogerio de Lima plus 200, brother, and I cashed that. I cashed that big time. That was a big hit for me. We didn't talk about the Denise Lane card. That was a highlight KO. I don't know what Austin Lane is doing fighting anymore. The guy has no chin. And honestly, I think Austin Lane should just retire. It sounds terrible, but I think he should retire. I think if you're at heavyweight, you already don't have a chin, you're losing fights, all you're doing is giving yourself more CTE to come. Let's just keep it a buck. Like, you're going to go in there against heavyweights, you're going to get knocked out pretty easily if you don't have a chin. Maybe he's just doing it because he needs money, which is probably the most realistic circumstance, which sucks. I'm sure this is his passion now since he was an ex-football player, but bro, might be time to retire if that's something that you can do. We don't even need to talk about Medic versus Means. Big KO for Medic. Pretty easy one there. You're just hyped for 302. I don't think Dustin lasting against Islam, though. I would agree. Like, I would love to see Dustin win. But when I'm talking fights, I got to be honest. And I don't think it's a great matchup for him. I don't. Islam's a tough matchup for everybody. And the weaknesses that Dustin has, Islam has those strengths to exploit it. I think it's a tough matchup for Dustin. And the odds would agree with me. Islam's like minus 500 at this point. Let's talk about the bad decisions. I got to go out of the IG chat for this one. So come on over to YouTube if you're in the IG chat so we could talk about these bad decisions. Boys. Michael Figlak. So this is coming from my guy, what's his name? Magic MMA Bets on Twitter. A good follow if you're on Twitter, or X, I should say. He says, we watched a blatantly fixed fight result yesterday in the UFC, and nothing will be done about it. Against the fave that moved almost $1, it's not the first or second time this year. I bet Figlak, and before saying cope, consider I may know things you don't. So it sounds like he's pretty confident that this fight was fixed. or at least the judges were swayed in one direction. And I would tend to agree, because if you look at the live betting odds, Michael Figlak was minus 400 after round 2. Now, according to the judges' scorecards, Michael Figlak had not won rounds 1 nor 2. So he was down 2-0 going into the third. And yet Michael Figlak was still minus 300 or minus 400. And then Figlak wins the round number 3. I thought he clearly won round number 3. The judges give him round number 3, but it ends up being a unanimous decision, 29-28 for Austin Hubbard. So how does a guy be minus 400 on the live betting odds, but all 3 judges didn't give him a single round? It seems very fishy. I would be curious to know what this guy Magic MMA knows, if he knows anything. But in all truth, I think that fight was fairly close. First round and the second round were fairly close. I would have edged Figlak round 1. Round 2 was fairly close. Maybe you give it to Hubbard. Round 3 was pretty clearly for Figlak. Now, I'm a Figlak better, but I thought that fight probably should have went to Figlak pretty clearly. Robbery, but the betting odds are usually pretty accurate. Like minus 400 after round 2, and not a single judge gave him a round. It's pretty fishy. Pretty fishy. Possible that those judges were being tampered with. Back to the YouTube chats. I'm just hyped for 302. Well, we just talked about that. Ryan says, I'll be at 302. Got some great fights, just not the biggest name value. I agree. Strickland Cost is a sick fight as well. Icy Metroid. I saw Usyk fight live at UFC 295. Had no clue who he was. Now he's fighting for the belt. Yeah, that was his second fight in the UFC at that point. His second fight in the UFC, UFC 295. Now he's fighting for a title at UFC 301. That's pretty nuts. Usyk's a beast, though. If you watch him fight, very, very skilled. Very skilled. Another bad decision I thought was Machado versus Mays. Bro, like, Machado, I thought Machado clearly lost the first after getting knocked down. I thought he won the second and the third. I don't know, man. Like, am I just that biased? I thought Machado won rounds 2 and 3. I think round 3 was pretty clear for him. Round 2 maybe could have went the Mays way. I'm not going to get too butthurt about it, but that's another one that I just thought was terrible. Moving forward, the rest of the UFC card, we don't really need to spend any time on because it was just so trash. Like, we already talked about Mark McMahon, how trash he is. James Lontop, absolutely, I wouldn't really say he got fraud checked, but he just made a huge mistake. Like, he was winning that fight, clearly, landing good shots on the feet, got taken down, would get right back up, and then the third time he got taken down, he just gave his back, gave the rear naked choke right up to Chris Padilla, and that was wraps. So, bad loss for him. He was a big favorite, and he screwed me in 2 parlays. So, thank you, James Lontop, for giving your neck and losing me money. Appreciate it. We already talked about Liang Na, and we don't really need to talk about Ma's shot fight. It was a solid fight, but not really much to say about that. Ryan says, Usyk gets KO'd in the second. I don't think he's going to get KO'd. I think, if anything, he gets subbed. But, man, like, Pantoja's tough. It's tough. I don't think Usyk's, like, chinny by any means. So, it would take a big bomb. It would take a massive bomb by Pantoja. Knox, you took a picture with Mike Perry yesterday. That's sick. I saw Mike Perry at the BKFC when it was at the Hard Rock. We went to the Hard Rock to watch the BKFC when it was Austin Trout versus, what's his name? I forget his name. I feel terrible for forgetting his name. The guy that I bet on, he lost in the main event. But I saw Mike Perry there too. He was just walking around pretty normal. Cool dude. Freaking love him. Let's get into it. Let's get into the BKFC. Mike Perry he's unfair at this point. Like, he's just absolutely unfair. He's beaten, he beat Thiago Elvis in a minute. He landed like one left hook. Beautiful timing, beautiful accuracy. All it took was one left hook to get Thiago Alves out of there. And easy win for Mike Perry. And you go back in his record, beats Eddie Alvarez. Eddie Alvarez went 5 rounds with Chad Mendes, beat Chad Mendes. Goes against Luke Rockhold. Luke Rockhold's much bigger, maybe much faster. Just absolutely bullied him in there. Beat him in 2 rounds, less than 2 rounds. Beat Michael Venom Page by decision. Michael Venom Page is a top 15 welterweight in the UFC at this point. Like, Michael Venom Page is one of the best strikers in the history of MMA. And I know that's bare knuckle boxing, but if you watch his fights, he uses his hands pretty damn well. Like, that right hand he throws right down the pipe is very tough to deal with. Mike Perry beat him. He beat him in bare knuckle boxing. Like, who's BKFC going to give Mike Perry at this point that really has any chance to beat him? Like, I know the Darren Till versus Mike Perry fight is one that people talk about, but I think Mike Perry absolutely destroys Darren Till. Like, I know Darren Till has had like this hype. He's an amazing striker. And he hasn't always been able to use it in MMA because he's getting taken down. But like, Mike Perry would roll through him in BKFC. Like, Darren Till's never fought in a bare knuckle boxing. Like, Mike Perry has some of the most experience in BKFC now. Everybody knows MMA and BKFC are totally different. Like, if Darren Till goes in there against Mike Perry, first fight in BKFC, he's going to be shell-shocked. Mike Perry's going to hit him with one punch, and Darren Till's going to be like, what the fuck was that? And then Mike Perry's just going to put it on him, probably knock him out in round 1 or 2. Probably going to make him quit. At this point, Mike Perry is overpowered. JRZ, I agree with you, bro. Mike Perry is OP at this point. He has too much experience in the sport. He's too good at the sport. He's a very good boxer, very underrated boxer. The left hook he hit Thiago Alves with, beautifully timed, beautifully placed. And yes, big brother, I agree. Thiago Alves is 40, coming off the couch. I wouldn't really say he's coming off the couch. Like, he's a coach at ATT. He's in the gym every day. I'm sure he's very motivated to get in there and get a win. But Mike Perry's just that guy. He's overpowered. It's unfair at this point. Mike Perry rolls through Darren Till. He rolls through Jorge Masvidal. He rolls through Nate Diaz. One punch from Mike Perry, Nate Diaz's face is covered in blood. We all know the scar tissue that Nate Diaz has. Okay, one punch from Mike Perry, that dude's gushing everywhere. Masvidal, I think he's just way too slow at this point. He's way too slow. And if you just put Masvidal in a position where he just boxes, I know he has good boxing, but this isn't exactly boxing. This is BKFC. BKFC is just a different freaking sport. And Mike Perry has the most experience at the highest level, and he is the best to do it. You're not going to be able to just go in there and beat him just because you're Jorge Masvidal. You're just not. You're just not. DC 209. Thiago definitely was rusty, though, since he had not fought in a few years. I agree. But he did have some BKFC experience. Like, at least he's been in there. I think he had 2 BKFC fights before that. Definitely rusty. At the end of the day, Thiago Alves got $200K to go in there and lose in the first round to Mike Perry. And that's kind of the tough part for David Feldman being the president of BKFC. You have to pay so much money to these guys to fight Mike Perry, and then they're probably just going to get smoked. And at some point, I think we've seen this in the UFC. Like, at some point, if a guy is just too dominant, it starts to get boring. Like, when I thought about this the other night, I thought about Israel Adesanya. The run he had as a champion in middleweight, it was starting to get boring. Maybe just the way that he fights. Like, he sometimes he point fights, sometimes he goes through the lens of, like, if you want to beat me, you got to knock me out, and he just kind of plays defense. And it started to get boring. Like, he had fought Whitaker twice. He had just beat Jared Cannonier. He had beat, like, Marvin Vettori. Like, it started to get boring. And the UFC had to literally pick Alex Pereira. They had to go back in time and be like, all right, who in history has beaten Israel Adesanya? And they saw Alex Pereira had those 2 wins over Izzy. And they're like, we need this guy in the UFC. They bring him in. And what did he fight? 3 times before getting a title shot? They're like, this is the guy that can beat Israel Adesanya so that these title fights aren't as boring anymore because Israel Adesanya is just too good for these middleweights. We need somebody to come in here and beat him because it's getting boring at this point. I think that could eventually be the challenge that BKFC has. It's like, Mike Perry's too dominant in this sport. We can't find anybody that gives him a fight, like that gives him a real challenge in there. It's a problem. It's somewhat of a problem. Like, of course, everybody's going to tune in to watch Mike Perry fight. He's becoming an absolute superstar in that realm. But if he just goes out there and knocks guys out in the first or second round every single time, it starts to become a problem. Just what it is. They should give Mike Perry fight against other active BKFC active fighters so they can market those guys as well. See, the problem with that is it doesn't sell. Like the guys that they have in the BKFC now, they can't put them up against Mike Perry and people are going to tune in. Now, maybe not as many people know like who Thiago Alves is. Most people do. Most MMA fans do. And that's kind of the market that they want to get. But if you're just going to bring in a guy that's come up through BKFC and has a lot of experience in BKFC that nobody really knows, you put him up against Mike Perry, it probably doesn't sell as much. It probably just doesn't. And that, of course, they're a promotion. They want to sell big money fights. But it probably just wouldn't sell. And could they justify paying a guy $200K, to fight Mike Perry that nobody really knows? Maybe not. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's kind of the problem I see with that. But it might be the way to build a guy as well. Put him up against Mike Perry. He has a great fight with Mike Perry. Maybe loses, maybe wins. And then you got another star. Possibly. But Mike Perry's a one-of-a-kind, bro. He's a one-of-a-kind type of fighter. Just a hard-nosed guy. Doesn't give a shit. Just goes in there and throws bombs. Takes anything that's thrown at him like a champ. It just keeps moving forward. Enough BKFC talk. Let's get into it. Larry CTM in the chat wants to know Hayden's early picks for UFC 301. So let's get into it. Let's talk about it. Should we start at the bottom of the card or the top of the card? In the chat, whatever one I see first, I will go with. Bottom of the card from the first fight up, or should we go top down? Let me know in the chat. Bottom up. All right, Larry in the chat says bottom up. Bottoms up. Hey, Alessandro Costa, Kevin Borjas. I love both guys. Both guys solid strikers. Borjas more of a stand-up boxing type. Costa maybe has a grappling edge. Good leg kicks. I'm going to go with Costa in this one. Just because I think his leg kicks will start to add up. I think he's got good cardio. And let's be honest, boys, like Alessandro Costa just fought Steve Erceg. And I believe it was a 29-28 decision that went to Steve Erceg. So he got a win over the guy that's challenging for the title. I'm going to go with Alessandro Costa. I think Costa's actually pretty good. I think he'll be ranked in the flyweight division pretty soon. Moving up, we got Ishmael Bonfim, Vince Pichel. Bonfim's a big favorite. I know that. But Vince Pichel's like 40 years old. I think Bonfim probably bounces back here in his home country of Brazil. I could probably see this one going to a decision because Pichel's pretty tough. And Bonfim is a guy that likes to pick his shots. I'd probably say Bonfim by decision. Deani Barbosa. I agree. Toffee Coffee. What a name. Bonfim dub. I agree. He's a big favorite, so it's not really saying anything. Deani Barbosa, Ernesta Caracate. Dana White Contender Series alums. Both of them making their UFC debut. Barbosa is a grappler. Very high-level grappler as well. We saw her get a first-round submission on the Contender Series. Karakate is a kickboxer, which is going to be tough if Barbosa can get her to the ground. I think she probably works her pretty easily on the ground, but if she can't get her to the ground, she's in some trouble because Ernesta is a solid striker. And she's going to have some problems on the feet, but I think Barbosa should be able to get her to the ground. I'll go with Barbosa. Mauricio Ruffy, Jamie Malarkey. There's not a chance in hell I'm taking Jamie Malarkey with that chin. Give me Mauricio Ruffy by KO. Jamie Malarkey's chin might be one of the worst in the UFC right now. The guy just gets touched on the chin and he falls. So give me Mauricio Ruffy. Joaquim Silva, Drakkar Klose. I'm boys with Drakkar Klose. I think this is a winnable fight for him. He's a vet. He's so well-rounded. I know Joaquim Silva has some heavy hands and some good jiu-jitsu as well. I bet on Joaquim Silva, I think, last time to get a sub over Clay Guida. The guy had it locked in like 3 or 4 times, and he just couldn't get it done because Clay Guida is just tough in those situations. But I think I'm going to go with Drakkar Klose. I think he's able to outpoint him on the feet. I think he could take shots from Joaquim, and he's got some good boxing himself. So I'm going to go with Drakkar Klose there. Malarkey can't take shots anymore, bro. Jamie's chin is ass, bro. Silva's a bit chinny. If you're talking about Joaquim, he is... I wouldn't really call him chinny. I mean, he's been knocked out, 3 times? Ground and pounded out by Arman Sarukian. Did get knocked out by Ricky Glenn. That's not a good look. And knocked out by Nasrat. Yeah, I like the Drakkar Klose side here. He's my boy. He just had another kid. I think he's a great dude. And I think he's got the skills to win. Drakkar Klose for me. This one is interesting. Gene Silva, William Gomi. Gene Silva, training out of Fighting Nerds. The guy's explosive. The guy's powerful. But William Gomi's a guy that's like, he doesn't get hit. He's tall. He's lengthy. He keeps his distance. Not necessarily like a big power puncher, but he's just one of those France kickboxers that's just so tough to hit. I think Gene Silva's going to have he's going to have difficulty finding the range or getting inside the range. Maybe he could get some takedowns on him. But I'm with you, Larry. I think Gomi could probably squeeze a boring decision. What's the line on that? I think Gomi might be a slight underdog. I know he's going into enemy territory, but I think he's got the skills to pull off a decision win here. I'm going to go with William Gomi. Striking's very good. I wouldn't really call him a dog. Gomi ain't a dog. Let's just be real here, Larry. Gomi ain't a dog. Gomi is a point fighting kickboxer that doesn't like to get hit. He's good, but I don't think he's like a dog or anything. This one's going to be insane, or it could be insane. It's a good matchup. In all reality, it could turn out to be very boring. But Elvis Brenner, Mittebek, Orobai. This guy, Orobai, looks like he's coming straight out of the cave like 5,000 years ago. Let's just keep it a buck, man. Orobai looks like a real problem. Okay, what he did to Uros Medic was straight up sad, bro. Like, he just smothered him. Strong wrestling. And I saw a clip of Orobai grappling with Bilal Muhammad, and he was working Bilal. Bilal was like getting smothered by this guy. Brenner, on the other hand, guy's a dog. Guy is a definition of the dog. I see you in the chat, Larry. You weren't saying a real dog. You're just saying an underdog. But, bro, Toffee Coffee in the chat. Bro, I just walked down to MGM today and put 50 bands on him. Screw the odds. Mittebek all the way. Bro, if you put 50 bands on Mittebek, what does that return? Like 20? 20,000 maybe? Something like that? If you actually did that, send me the freaking ticket, bro, because I got to see if you're that confident in Orobai. I do think Orobai wins, but Elvis Brenner's a dog, bro. Like, what he was able to go through against Kudaladze and still win the fight, super impressive. But at the same time, I don't think Orobai is going to give him any opportunity on the feet. I think he just smothers him, bro. Yeah, send me that ticket, brother. I would love to see it. Orobai gets it done. Brenner is too small for Orobai grappling. I'm sure Brenner could fight one division down. That is a big point there. Thanks for bringing that up. Mitebek, I believe, fought at 170 for a while, or at least on the regional scene, but at 155, or no, he fought at 170 in his debut, and he's fought at 170 on the regional scene. Moving down to 155, this dude's gonna be massive. This guy's gonna be strong. I think he probably just grapples the hell out of Brenner. I know Brenner's got good jiu-jitsu, but when you're getting smothered by a guy like Orobai, there's not really much you could do. Guram was part of your parlay, and you smacked the TV when he lost, bro. That was insane. That fight was one of the sickest fights of the year. Was that 2022, 2023? I think it was 2023. Crazy fight. Orobai is was a welterweight, and now a lightweight. Yeah, he's going to be huge in there. I got to go with Orobai. Moving on. Bro, in the IG chat, Orobai crawled out of a cave 5,000 years ago, bro. I swear he did. Because that dude looks like a real monster. Like, that's some shit. You'd be walking through the woods, and that dude comes out of a cave, and you're like, holy shit, we got to get the fuck out of here. Because that dude might just drag us into that cave and wrestle fuck us, bro. Something crazy like that. Moving on. Karolina Kowalkiewicz, Yasmin Lucindo. I want to see these betting odds, because I think Lucindo is a massive favorite. And I think that's a little bit generous, bros. Like, should Lucindo be that big of a favorite over Karolina? Karolina's a vet. She's on a win streak. I think on the feet, Karolina can do pretty much, I don't want to say do anything to Lucindo, but she can keep pace with Lucindo. I don't really think Lucindo's grappling is that good. So I'm having a hard time really trying to figure out how Lucindo should be this big of a favorite. I would probably chalk it up to a dog or pass. I guess Lucindo might be a little bit more well-rounded. Obviously, has the youth on her side. I think she's got maybe heavier hands than Karolina. And Karolina's old, yeah. I'll go with Lucindo just for an early pick, but I'll definitely be looking at that Karolina money line, bro. She is old, but she's got good volume. She's got good striking. Pretty good overall game. She's going to have the experience. And honestly, I don't really think age plays a huge factor in like women's MMA fights. Not as much as men's. Like men's, the athleticism dies down, the quickness, but like women's MMA, you can kind of rely on just your techniques and just your overall skill set. And I think Karolina's skill set is probably up there with Lucindo's. So, shit, man, I might actually be looking at Karolina to bet. Brito. Joe Anderson, Brito, Jack Shore. Jack Shore has been a guy that I have always been low on. And he's one of these Cage Warriors guys. I'm always low on Cage Warriors guys, because I just don't think that promotion is that good. Jack Shore was undefeated in the UFC for a while. He won 6 fights in the UFC, or 5 fights in the UFC. And then took his first loss to Ricky Simone. Bro, I just never impressed with Jack Shore. Like, he was a 135er, and he wasn't really, like, physically built. Like, I always have a tough time looking at guys that aren't, like, jacked up, like, super muscled up, and being like, yeah, I want to put my money on that guy. Like, I'm sure he has good skills. He moves up to 145. It just looks a little bit tubbier. I think Brito's a stud. I think Joe Anderson Brito is an absolute stud. I think Brito wins this pretty easily. I'll just keep it a buck. I think Brito, much bigger power on the feet, just way more dangerous in every scenario. Got good submissions. He just submitted Jonathan Pierce. I like Brito this week, man. What do you guys think in the chat, boys? Like, I think Brito's a solid play. You think Brito breaks Jack Shore as the fight goes on? I agree. Brito has a win over Diego Lopez. Yes, exactly, bro. I mean, that win over Diego Lopez ages very, very well. I think that was on the Contender Series. Brito's a stud, bro. He's a scary guy to go against. And I just don't think Jack Shore really has much for him. I don't know. Man, I got to watch a little bit more film on it, but I think Brito is the side for me. You're going Jack? Jakey in the chat really likes Jack Shore. Conor Faye, you got Brito as also. I agree, brother, bro. Brito's a beast. He's just a stud. Moving on. Paul Craig, Caio Baralho. I mean, Caio's a technician in there, bro. Like, he's very solid on the feet. I don't believe he's very dangerous on the feet. On the ground, I wish he was just more dangerous. Like, on the feet, he doesn't have big knockout power. On the ground, he doesn't really work for submissions or, like, threaten submissions all that often. He's just very good with his control time. If the real question for me is, like, does he want to go to the ground with Paul Craig? Like, Caio, on paper, looks like he could take Paul Craig down if he plays safe. He should be able to win pretty easily. But if he goes to the ground with Paul Craig, time and time and again, has found ways to pull off these weird submissions or even TKO finishes against Jamal Hill. That's like, holy shit, why would you go to the ground with Paul Craig? So I think Caio beats him easily on the feet. If he goes to the ground, I think he's just kind of putting himself in danger. Maybe he does that, maybe he doesn't. I think he's a very smart fighter. I'd be interested to know what his game plan is going into this, but I got to go Caio for the pick. In the chat, seems to think Caio's pretty easily winning this fight. But yeah, man, I think Caio, he's good. I just don't really like the possibilities of going to the ground with Paul and Paul Craig just pulling off something crazy, because he does that all the time. Moving on, we got Michel Pereira and Ihor Potieria. I think this one's kind of one-way traffic. I know Ihor made his middleweight debut against that Polish dude, Robert Dryzek or Bryczek or whatever. He missed weight for that one. I know he took that fight on short notice. Ihor did. But I would assume he's going to be able to make weight now at 185, now that it's not quite on short notice. But I think Michel Pereira is just way more explosive, a lot faster. Like, he was fighting at 170, but at 185, he's so much faster than these guys, so much more explosive, and I think he fills out to 185 pretty well. So I think it's a pretty easy win for Michel Pereira. I don't think Potieria has the best chin. I don't think he has the best skills. He's just kind of got this, like, really weird striking southpaw type of game. It doesn't really look good to me. Like, I think Pereira's much better striker, much more explosive. I think his cardio's better at 185. I think he beats Potieria pretty easily. So I'll take Pereira, and we can move on. 3 fights left, boys. Anthony Smith, Vitor Petrino. Petrino's undefeated. Anthony Smith coming off the knockout loss to Khalil Roundtree. Boys, I gotta go Vitor. Like, at this point, I think Vitor is very well rounded. I've always kind of thought like there was a point where I could fade him, but every time I'm about to fade him, I'm like, nah, this is a winnable fight for him. Like, last time out against Tyson Pedro, it's a winnable fight for him. Before that was Bukauskas. I was big on Petrino in that fight. I thought he was going to knock him out. He did. Pacquiao fight was interesting for me. I was kind of on the fence about Pacquiao outpointing him on the feet because Petrino's not super high volume. When Petrino goes with his hands, he knocks dudes out. I don't understand. That's the big thing I see with Petrino is, like, he needs to just throw more. Like, if he just committed to his strikes, he's knocking dudes out easily. But he doesn't seem to do that. A lot of times he tries to go to his wrestling and grappling game. I don't know if he's just trying to work on his skills there or what. It's all very, very confusing to me. But I think Vitor should be able to win this fight pretty easily, and I think he should be able to knock out Anthony Smith pretty easily. So I'm with you guys in the chat. I think Vitor probably wins by knockout. Co-main event. Jonathan Martinez, Jose Aldo. This is where it gets interesting, boys. We got about 10 minutes left. I'm going to try to keep this under an hour. So we'll try to go fairly quickly with this one. Jose Aldo, Jonathan Martinez. I think Jonathan Martinez pulls off a dub here. I don't really know Jose Aldo's intentions in coming back to the UFC. And from what I saw, Jose Aldo has 1 fight left on his UFC contract. And from what I've heard, Jose Aldo has really enjoyed doing his whole boxing thing, keeping his training kind of low key. He loves to train. He loves to compete. I don't understand why he's going back to the UFC now, and why would you take a fight against a guy like Jonathan Martinez? Like, what does that really do for your career? I think Jonathan Martinez looked at this as an opportunity to get a big win over a big name guy on a big card co-main event spot. I think Jonathan Martinez is going to be very motivated to get this win, and it's a great spot for him to get a win. I think Jose Aldo being, 37, 38? 37. I think Jose Aldo's kind of just taking this fight to get out of his contract, if I'm being honest. Like, sure, he's probably going to go in there and try to win, try to get his money. Maybe the UFC gave him a good amount of money to come in and be on this card as a co-main event spot, kind of save the card somewhat. Like, Aldo's a huge name, but I think Jonathan Martinez has the skills to beat him. Great leg kicks, decent hands, solid grappling. I think he wins. I like the Jonathan Martinez side. If you like the Aldo side, I don't know, man. I think you're kind of just taking it because it's the name. Like, it's Jose Aldo. But I think Jonathan Martinez has the skills to win. I think he's on a much better trajectory at this point. I'll take Jonathan Martinez, J Mart, for the win. Moving on, we got the main event of the evening. Alexandre Pantoja versus Steve Erceg. I believe Pantoja, let me just take a look at the line right now. Pantoja is about minus 250. Erceg comes back plus 200. Erceg, I believe this guy has some very legit skills. And I do look at Pantoja being 34 years old now. Pantoja has been my guy for a long time. And I don't know that I'm ready to jump off the train. I see you in the chat, Toffee Coffee, saying Erceg shouldn't even be getting the title shot. And I agree, but that's based on the fact that, like, there's nobody else that you could put in there with Pantoja in this moment. Like, he's the guy that should be there. Like, Erceg's the guy that should be there at this point. There's nobody else that you could put against Pantoja. Erceg has 3 fights in the UFC, all wins, all against very solid competition, I would say. I think it really just comes down to how good is Steve Erceg's grappling. Pantoja is going to bring the fight to him on the feet. I think he can land some big shots on Erceg. I also think Erceg can land some big shots on Pantoja. Erceg's a very calculated striker. Doesn't really get too crazy. Very crisp, very clean, very accurate. Pantoja is kind of a mauler. Like, he goes in there, big combinations, tries to take your head off, and then if that fails, he'll clinch you up, take your back, get you to the ground, and he has some of the best. I say this with complete confidence. Pantoja has some of the best jiu-jitsu in flyweight history, and maybe even in the UFC. Like, the guy is able to control people on the ground, able to flow in transitions in scenarios where flyweights are very tough to control on the ground. Pantoja does it better than anybody. I think I got to go with Pantoja here, just based on the experience. I think his skill set is second to none in the flyweight division. He's never been knocked out, never been submitted. He's durable. I know Erceg could find something, but if you look at a lot of his fights, he's not putting dudes out. He's not like crazy big combos where he's super dangerous. Like, he knocked out Matt Schnell. Matt Schnell gets knocked out by a lot of guys. And before that, he was fighting on the regional scene, getting submissions. I got to go with Pantoja, man. I can't go against him. Like, Pantoja's just that guy. At 34, it's a little scary. But, once he hits 35, then I'll be looking to fade him. But I got to go with Pantoja, man. I think it's a solid spot for him. Title defense in his home country against a guy that has 3 UFC fights. Erceg's good. Don't get me wrong. I love him. I think he could be an eventual future champion. But I got to go Pantoja. I could see a Pantoja by decision, honestly. I think Erceg, he's never been finished. I think it's going to be a longer fight. I could see that. I don't really see Pantoja just going in there rolling through him. Maybe he does, but I think Urseg is tough enough. And I think this is a spot where Urseg's got a lot on the line. You know, it's an opportunity for him. It's a shot that he's been waiting for his entire life. I don't think he's going to go away easily. I think Pantoja probably just wins this fight by decision. I can't go against Pantoja here. I got to go with him. You think Pantoja? Yeah. Toffee Coffee's with me. Pantoja by decision, bro. I think it could be a play. I'd love to see the number when it comes out. But Pantoja's a dog. Calling it right now, KO. You think Pantoja KOs him? Perez KOing Nicolau just shows us that Nicolau is not a title contender and that his chin is shit. I agree, brother. I agree. We can pretty much wrap it up there. I appreciate y'all for joining in the IG chat and the YouTube chat. We're here every Sunday, rocking the Sunday service. Next week we'll be recapping UFC 301. So definitely want to tune into that. Sub to the channel on Hayjivepicks. Hit the like button for me. And if you're watching this back after the fact, check out the shows from past weeks as well. Appreciate y'all. Till next time, Hayjivepicks here. Sunday service. We out.